presentation. Everybody will hear a secretary before we go anywhere. George, you want to...
Thank you very much. Kia ora tātou, nei rata mihi, kia hui mai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks very much for the opportunity of talking to you today. I understand you've had a solid morning, and someone said, do we come with good news? Yes, we do. I just wanted to cover three quick things before Annie goes through her presentation. And the first one is just to reflect on what it is we've been trying to do over these past few years. And we put a proposal to you all to really turn around the direction of tourism for Hawke's Bay. When we look at the recent history of that, we can see that that is starting to pay off, and you'll see that in the figures. But just the highlights of those are, during the last summer season, Hawke's Bay was one of the top 3 performing regions in New Zealand. Over Easter, Hawke's Bay was the top performing region for growth in the country. Now, these are consequences of continual investment and focus in actually, promoting the region. There's 2 other highlights I'd just like to draw your attention to as a consequence of the work that's being done. As you know, the Hawke's Bay Marathon, the Air New Zealand Marathon, was held just recently. This was one of the top 3 events the region's held, and it's in May, which is fantastic for us, for what it brings. That would not have come here if we did not have an active marketing arm of the region that was engaged, not only promoting events, but promoting the region, and had the capacity to deal with the sorts of things that Air New Zealand wanted. So it's a direct result of investment in the promotion of the region and investment in an entity that would do that. The second one that I'd like to draw your attention to is the UNESCO opportunity that's come our way as well. And this is the opportunity for the region to be seen as a UNESCO food heritage innovation site. This has enormous potential, not just for tourism, but for the wider promotion. And we've already started working with a variety of the other councils and where this could go to. But again, this comes out of an active profile for the region that people are engaged with, interested in, and feel that by engaging directly with the region, they'll get the sorts of responses they need to do these things. So that's, I suppose, a hint at what the future is going to contain as well. So we sit here today, we've got growth. We're now batting above the average for the country at last, and we've got fantastic opportunities that are coming our way on a constant basis, and we expect to have more of those. So with those few opening words, I'll ask Annie to go through some of the detail of the last few months. Thanks, Annie.
Kia ora, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm going to whip through, because I know it's nearly lunchtime for you all, but a little bit about where we're at in terms of numbers, what have we been doing, top line summary, and then what are we going to do more of for the next 12-month period. In terms of our visitor nights, we're at 4.14 million visitor nights, and this is a combination of our commercial stats, accommodation stats, and our private household monitor. But the really wonderful result we've had is the $596 million spend year in March. This is plus 7% on the previous 12 months, which bucks ahead of the national average of 5%. So we're delighted with those results, and it's well on our track for our performance KPIs. In terms of market share, and George just mentioned this, in terms of spend we're up, and we have been recording the best commercial nights. We're one of the top 3 regions for the November through February, March period. And so that's been a great result for us, and that's all about consistent marketing activity driving those visitors over that period. Our length of stay is also something that we're very lucky to have a length of stay that we do. So it sits at 3.1 nights. Rotorua maybe is about 1.4. So we do have a larger share of the international visitors staying longer, which is testament to the product that the region has on offer. This is a new bit of kit that we've got our hands on. This is the Curious data. So this is a cell phone, and we've talked about this a little bit previously, but we're now getting some much better information from this source. And what this is telling us here is you can see where visitors have interacted across the region from January this year through till May. I think I printed this off last week. So you can start to see how our visitors move and where they stay and populate in the region. This is arrivals, so it's not nights spent, so it could be people who are here for the day. Obviously there's a big concentration around Napier and Hastings, but it's really nice to see the quite high pockets in areas like Mahia, Wairoa and further south in central Hawke's Bay. And when it gets into those red numbers, it's up into I think it says 15 to 19,000 visitor arrivals per day.
Excuse me, Annie, while on the way through, I think Councillor Hewitt's got a question.
Yes, thank you. While you're on the slide, Annie, is that, seen as it's cell phone data, is that also not showing that there's quite a bit of the region that's outside of cell phone coverage that leads to a huge opportunity in our strategic plan? Should we be looking at connectivity?
Yep, connectivity is key. This is picking up, so they extrapolate data. It's based on the Spark network. So there are some areas, particularly in northern Hawke's Bay, that don't, out towards the lake, that don't pick up. Yep. So, and I can ask them about that, but they do tend to extrapolate. And what it does, though, it hits if that person who's visiting, if they've come into Napier and then they've gone out, it will recognise that they've been in the region. So it's got a really clever algorithm that sits behind it. So it would be captured if they were moving in the region. If they were staying in a place that didn't have data capture, then it wouldn't be on there as a day visit. But this is a new site that we're a guinea pig in testing, but it's starting to show the actual number of true visitors. We don't know what they're here for. They could be here for business, they could be here for holiday events, etc. But it's starting to give us a much better read on things like visitor flow. So with Rocket Lab, and at 1:45 we might have a rocket away. That's a secret. And then, but it will start to show the passenger movement of people through to Mahia. So we will start to be able to see what the impact is on roading and those other sorts of things, or how long people are staying in the district, and so on. So it's got some great big legs that we're really keen to get into.
What you're saying is if any visitor comes through State Highway 2 either end, that they're going to be captured.
They will be
if they're
captured.
spending time on the out of zone.
Yep, they will.
Out of coverage area.
Yep.
So just a follow-up question, Annie, what correlation are you finding between that data you're getting from the cell phone usage
And the
versus
other,
your traditional sources?
the numbers of this is obviously greater because you're getting the day trip market as well, and the other data sets we use are nights spent in the region, and this is arrivals to date. So we've asked for a bunch of other metrics to be included in the next round of this. And below that, I haven't included it today, but you can see the origin of all these people. So we can start to see that Auckland accounts for X many visitors, whether they're day or night. Australia's about number 3 in terms of visitors in that period. So we can then, the other nice thing is you can, and I'll show you, I think I've got, this is Easter and Mission, so this is just April. So we've taken April and looked at the effect of Easter and the Mission concert. So you can really start to see, and Easter fell in March the previous year. So you can see how Easter, we always try and measure March and April together because they're too extreme if you don't. And but you can see the effect of those two events on the region. It's pretty phenomenal.
Peter, if I could just add, we're sort of running both of these sets of figures in parallel until we can. We don't want to jump and then find that we lose the history, but it seems to be better. But we were a test organisation for Curious. They now run it right around the country, but we want a greater history before we can say that we're totally comfortable with the figures.
Yeah. So that just gives you a little flavour of where we're heading from a data point of view, which is exciting.
I'm really interested in that. So how do you capture, I know you've told us this before, but I'm really keen to get retold. How do you capture my daughter who comes down and the Mission concert and stays at my house, and I pay all her costs, so you don't know anything about it, but money spent that wouldn't be otherwise spent? How do you capture her?
So if her cell phone is registered as an Auckland address or wherever she lives, it'll be a Wellington address. So basically Well, if that's the case, then if it's Hawke's Bay, then if it's Hawke's Bay, she probably isn't captured. So what the algorithm does, it looks for any number that's the origin is out of Hawke's Bay. So we set the parameters of the region, and anything out of that gets captured. So that's how it kind of works. It's how they measure the spend figures as well. So origin credit card data. So if her card's registered, her phone.
If it's your phone and your card, she won't be caught.
In terms of one of the questions that I'm often asked at council is around the operators and what they contribute to tourism, and we do run a pretty sort of tight spreadsheet on how we measure this in terms of the contribution by our industry. And you can see from this, it's a fairly substantial pile of money that sits way outside in terms of what sits within our budget. So there's the membership fee, which we do capture, but in the last in the period probably ending the 16 financial year, there was about $270,000 that the industry contributed to running for Mill. So that big blue part of that pie chart is what the industry contribute to us to hosting about 250 media or travel agents. We pay the very small green part, and Tourism New Zealand actually pays the rest. So the contribution's huge. They also contribute to a bunch of advertising that we do and promotions. And in addition to that, and the 250k is a pretty light figure, but that's what they do in addition to promote the region when they're heading out, whether
Excuse me,
it's overseas.
Annie, I just wonder whether you can help me with the 270,000 to host travel and the 90 for advertising. So that's for a payment made by the membership for those two particular activities, is that correct?
So the 270, so if we have a group of travel agents in, we go out to the industry and say, how would you contribute to hosting these people? So there might be a group of 10. The Crown Hotel will provide 10 free rooms at a cost of X to her business.
So it's in kind, is that correct?
It's in kind. It's all contra. Some of it there's charges to, but it's a big business cost for a lot of them. 10 travel agents at $250 a night, when she can sell those rooms, it is a cost. It's considered a cost for their business. So that's advertising opportunities within our visitor guides, within our wine and dining guides, those sorts of things.
So they're taking out advertising in
the Hawke's Bay brochures, yeah,
tourism magazine.
supporting our initiatives, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Annie, on page 83 of our document, you mentioned Hawke's Bay Tourism has 268 members.
Mm-hmm.
Out of what universe of prospective, what's the pool?
What's the pool?
Yeah.
We sort of calculate about 400 true tourism businesses, but some of them are pretty part-time. They operate for the summer season only or the cruise season only. So
Could you be hosting a travel agent and not be a member of Hawke's Bay?
no.
So those numbers do reflect your
Yeah.
active members?
Yeah.
Tourism New Zealand wouldn't give them to anyone else other than us.
Yeah. And just a little example, just from a media point of view, we've now got this great tool where, and all of the media, international media we get come through Tourism New Zealand, and they've set up this media portal. So what this says is that in the last 12-month period, there's been 231 articles about Hawke's Bay, and the equivalent ad value of those articles, if we were to buy those pages or placements, was just over $8 million. So our IMP, our International Media Program, costs us $10,000 a year, and we get close to sort of just over $8 million to $10 million in coverage most years. So it's a very effective way for us to have Hawke's Bay kind of on the map. So there was a great New York Post piece just recently about food and wine and deco, etc. And so that went to about 2 or 3 million people in the New York area. So what do you get from that? It's just presence and exposure and awareness of Hawke's Bay in a pretty cluttered media environment, so it's positive. So some of the things we've been doing, funny fonts, and this is just we talked when we pitched to you a couple of years ago, was really about our focus on seasonal Hawke's Bay, and the numbers are starting to really show that strategic approach is working. So the spring piece that what the money's done is given us a consistent year-round approach to marketing. So spring's up 16%, winter's up, I think it's 18, I haven't got my glasses on. 18. Autumn's 5 and summer's 10. So what we've seen is a really nice shift over that period, and so the seasonal campaign, you would argue, is working really well. Just some examples of how that looks. You can see that. So these are some of the ads that we've run through summer. So whether it's around cycling, deco, Central Hawke's Bay's back paddock lakes, which are seriously fantastic. If that's a good team outing, we'll get you on a famil down there. And then walking Lake Waikaremoana. So that's just a little example for summer. The concert season, obviously the Black Caps wasn't such a brilliant advertising campaign, to be fair. And then obviously we did a lot of work with the team at Te Matatini around the festival. So it was really about trying to showcase what else you could do. When you clicked on that ad, it was what else was on in and around the region, and highlighted the various events at Te Matatini. Looking for sunshine. This was a very targeted ad for Wellingtonians in January, and that went out on Met Service sites and a bunch of Wellington locations to remind them of where they could be. That's Waipariki. Doesn't it look fantastic? Now we're just about to launch this. So this is a bit of fun. So this is winter. We're having a ski season in Hawke's Bay, if you didn't know. Chairlifts operating daily. The fresh powder daily, a shot from Bistronomy. We're just having a bit of fun with winter. Hit the slopes in Hawke's Bay, and a great base guaranteed at the Pipi Truck. So we're trying to be, everyone's being bombarded with ski messaging for Ruapehu and Queenstown. We thought we'd have a bit of fun, tongue-in-cheek with this activity. And actually one of the things that's popped up around this, and this is going to be placed very heavily in Wellington and Auckland, but one of the other opportunities that's popped up is around the Lions Tour. And one of our great Hawke's Bay exports, Rick Kirkland, who's got Funworks and builds everything that you can possibly imagine to blow up, he's created these geodomes that are going to sit in Wellington and Auckland for DHL. And there's a spare spot the day after the Hurricanes game. So we're going to take Hawke's Bay to Wellington and seriously promote the region from a food, wine and what to do. So we'll set up a farmers market inside the Geodome and promote the region to get the Lions travellers, once they've hit the test in Wellington, to travel. They've got a week to get to Auckland. So we want to get them to come our way, obviously up the classic New Zealand wine trail to Hawke's Bay. It's also fork, so we're expecting good things. So it's a great placement right near to Papa on the waterfront, and we're pretty excited about what that might do. The opportunity came up yesterday, so it's something we're going to activate pretty quickly. Oh, wrong way. In terms of events, George has mentioned the marathon, and I would like to congratulate you, Councillor Curtin, on winning your age category. I had to hand him his prize. It was quite something. So we had 4,500 runners. It was very impressive. I think it's a challenge. There were a few mayors and councillors on the walk and run. It was pretty impressive. But this event in itself, so second year, the numbers were fractionally down actually, but the impact of this event for the tourism industry is just enormous. One of our operators said it was bigger than Mission, which is saying something because that weekend in itself was fairly huge for the region. The nice thing with this event, the marathon's on the Saturday, every restaurant is booked out, every winery is booked out, the shopping, they're all women, 40s with gaggles of groups of girls. I was on the plane on Friday night and all they were talking about was what a great excuse to get away from their husbands and go to Hawke's Bay and drink wine and do a bit of exercise. So it's been a really big win. We've got it again next year. And hopefully beyond that, because the track's fantastic and they've done a lot of work on the course, particularly through the Gimlet Gravels region, and it's a pretty amazing course to kind of wander through. So well done, Councillor Good. Winter Fork for us is going absolutely gangbusters. We've done actually it's higher than that now, but about 225,000 in sales. And it's about 70% sold. There's 64 events across the region. All our Central Hawke's Bay events sold out before some of the other ones. That was pretty cool. And it's really it's got the food and wine sector kind of engaged in activating winter, because winter's pretty quiet. So this is a way to get people into restaurants, Our out-of-town numbers are looking fantastic. We've got Peter Gordon here from London. He's doing 2 events for us and with Air New Zealand. So it's really coming together, and Fork's getting a lot of international attraction from some of our tour operators who want to package it up and bring visitors from overseas, which is fantastic. Another event that we've been working on, I know some of you may know about this, Mr. Mohi knows about it well, but Whenua is, this could be our WOMAD. So this is an amazing concept celebrating the best of Aotearoa around culture and cuisine. The team from Auckland put on the Vodafone Music Awards, who are putting this together, and Hinewehi Mohi's very involved in this. It is a 2-day potential festival, probably towards the end of March, celebrating truly the harvest and all the good things that come from that, but with a heavy contemporary music, cultural music focus. So we're really excited about this. They're here at the moment finalising venues and working with us and the other council partners on funding plans and all sorts of things. But it's going to be potentially a very, very amazing long-term event for Hawke's Bay. So we've been working with them. So what are we going to do more of? George touched on the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, and some of you will be across this. But this is an opportunity that's come to us via actually Fork and Ray McVinney, who was our ambassador. And there's 7 categories to this network, and one of them that we think is most appropriate is the gastronomy network, and that would allow for the region to have a designation around gastronomy. So Hawke's Bay would be known as a UNESCO Creative City under the gastronomy banner. As an example, Parma in Italy is one. Montreal is a city of design. And so it's an amazing leverage opportunity for the region. And I guess from a tourism point of view, it's great, but it's an even bigger opportunity for the primary produce sector and all of what we grow. So having no one in New Zealand has a gastronomy status. Dunedin does have, there's a literature category, and Dunedin has as a designation. But it's what we choose to do with this that's really kind of the most exciting thing. And you, as a region, would be part of a fairly prestigious international network of cities around the world. And we can use that logo, etc. So we have a bit of a passion and desire to have Hawke's Bay recognised as a premium food and wine destination, and this obviously would give it a whole lot more legs as well. So there's a bit more to go with this. The application process, we're probably going to go for next year's application process, and we would like to talk to others, and I know Rex would really like to talk to you about this in a bit more detail. It needs the region to approach this. It's not a one council, it needs to be a regional approach, and UNESCO are very keen for us to proceed. So it's a little out there, but a really interesting opportunity for the region to put itself forward on the international stage. Are there any questions on UNESCO? No? In terms of our website, and we've talked about this before, so this for us is our biggest play for the year. This is the most important channel that we have. Not only is it going to become the portal for all of our council's visitor sites, so they've all agreed to step in behind this, which is fantastic. The site will be probably live in about September, and I just wanted to share with you some of the ways that it will look, but it's very much about the visitor. It's about providing information when they want it. So if they've been to Hawke's Bay 1,000 times, they don't really need to know how big we are from a geographic point of view or anything else, but they do want to know where to get a good coffee or the latest bar and those sorts of things. It'll also be good for locals, and the content is all shareable, which is the critical piece in today's digital age. So,
can I just cut in there with a question on that, on your portal? Have you got any capability to support people that want to run an event? I've got an example of, we want to run the Shakespeare Festival.
Yep.
And I found it terribly difficult to get the resources or the direction to run the event. How does someone go about that, and is it on your website?
So that would be on we have an industry website, so we put all our resources around event management and support on that site. From a Hawke's Bay tourism point of view, what we're there to do is help with a marketing approach to that event. So with Graham Duncan and others we've worked with before, it's been very much about how we share that, what that event is, when it is, out to our network. So we have the Event Finder feed, which is a free service for anyone who wants to run an event. In terms of actual on-the-ground expertise, we obviously, that's not something we do a lot of, other than the Big Easy, and obviously with Fork's really a marketing platform. But that's where sometimes the councils obviously can step in and help. But essentially, we're all there as a bit of the councils particularly from a consent point of view, and we from a marketing point of view is the focus.
I hear what you're saying, but would it be possible simply to aggregate up those providers of event support, for example, tents and all the paraphernalia?
So where to go to get...
Well, yeah, just a
Yep.
link perhaps to...
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, no, we could certainly fix that. That would be no problem at all. It would be an easy one. In terms of the site, and this is just a mock-up of the homepage, and I guess where we're going with this site, it's very much about thinking about, as a visitor, what someone like me might like. So this is an example where hopefully we'll have Al Brown telling people what his Hawke's Bay experience is like. Mr. Suave, who's next, and then perhaps it's a local. But one of the things we've created is, it's called the Hawke's Bay playlist. So every single piece of content within the site will be tagged and dropped into creating your own playlist. So Peter, if you wanted to do a golf weekend with your mates, you could drag in every golf course in Hawke's Bay, maybe some wineries, some accommodation options, and then you can share that with your golfing friends. A map also spits out where all those locations are. Everything's geo-targeted. So it means now that we've got this ability to create itineraries in a loose sense and share those on Facebook, through social, to our friends and so on. When they're here, they hashtag appropriately, whatever that might be, and obviously that's all shared. We will publish some of those playlists, so if they're particularly good, but ultimately we're trying to launch probably about 30 playlists of people, whether they're semi-celebrities or locals or whoever they may be, but they represent a type of sort of target audience for us. So no other regional tourism organisations are doing this. This site is very much about it's a magazine kind of style site, sort of a bit more newspaper style. And if we look further down, it's very much about, what's on, top places to get Syrah this week, or those sorts of tips that people would expect depending on the time of year they're travelling. So we plan to have a sort of a full-time editor looking at this site, which we believe is critical for where we're headed. It's also about using this content and sharing it as much as possible across the various channels like TripAdvisor and so on, to make sure those larger networks see the Hawke's Bay content. So the Our Neighbourhoods piece is where the regions and cities, towns, etc. sit. So there's a big, there's landing pages for each district and town. What's next? And then the other piece we've gone very heavy in is the guides. So where we've got clearly a strong proposition, whether it's food or wine, then we will create a specific guide for each of those, and they'll be curated by people who know what they're talking about. So it's not all the official tourism office telling you what to do. It's the arts guide might be driven by somebody who's heavily into arts and has a credible reputation in that space. So it's about Sarah Ulmer might do our cycling guide. So it's about using people who people go, oh, okay, they know what they're doing. They must know what's happening. And then one of the other this is just an example of what a food listing page will look like. So it's very heavy on great photography, locations, opening hours, which is always the bane of our lives. And obviously restaurants can upload menus and all sorts of things. So it's a very visual site, but a really simple site for people to kind of use, and we hope, book restaurants and so on. One of the guides that we're working in, this is one of the pieces of work we're looking at from a multicultural point of view. So this is very much about telling our stories and telling the multiple stories that we have around our myths and legends, how people can experience that Māori culture in Hawke's Bay, whether it's up in Wairoa or whether it's in central Hawke's Bay. So it's really trying to build content in this space. So we're talking with various hapu and with MTG about what are those stories and how we share them. And ultimately operators who can offer walking tours or waka tours, etc., will sit as links within this page. So this is an exciting page. There's lots to come on it, but it's something that we think is really important, and it'll be sitting on the homepage as well. From a tourism development point of view, and going forward, we're obviously doing quite a lot of work with the team in Wairoa and supporting them from a media point of view around Rocket Lab and looking at the opportunities for visitors. And this test launch today, if it's happened, is going to be a great start to know kind of the impact of what those launches will do. From a Māori tourism point of view, we've been working on this idea around a training program for young Māori to work in a range of tourism businesses and Hawke's Bay Tourism to learn kind of the sector. And obviously we're building on our web content and stories, and as I mentioned with the Whenua event, we will be working heavily around that as well. And we're involved with what Napier particularly is up to in the hotel development space. So we are kind of looking at more of these opportunities as they pop up.
So a question there, in terms of opportunities, are you doing anything, or are you talking to other councils about leveraging the government money they're talking about putting in for infrastructure, tourism infrastructure?
Yes, so I've had one conversation with Wairoa around funding, particularly around basic infrastructure around toilets and car parks and things, particularly in relation to Rocket Lab. And then we'll be talking to the other councils. The hard thing with that infrastructure fund is it's very much geared to high density tourism areas like Queenstown and the West Coast and Rotorua. So we do sit, unfortunately, further down the list, but we do believe, particularly Wairoa, it should be, definitely in the offering for some funding for some infrastructure. In terms of campaign, so obviously the relaunch of the website in September is a huge thing for us. We're looking at a new creative platform that will support with the website. And the content piece is, this is where it's all going from a marketing point of view, is in the creation of content and the sharing of that content, which it's obviously building it, but getting it out to the right channels is critical.
Annie, just a note on that slide, you've got the cities and towns noted. What's the contribution from those councils towards the campaign?
They don't tend to fund our marketing campaigns. What they do is support locally. Where we get funding from the TLAs is in event management sponsorship. And with content, they'll be supplying a huge amount of content with the site. So not a dollar value.
So the local councils are not contributing other than in specific sponsorship arrangements to Hawke's Bay Tourism, is that correct?
No.
Have we talked to them about that? Or?
Yeah, we have, and I think where we got to last time was that their view was that a lot of their funding was dedicated towards creating the right infrastructure for the visitors. So our job was to do the marketing, and their job was to make sure that visitors had the right experience on the ground when they got here. There's no question they invest in what they do in terms of the eyesight network, which is critical for our visitors to be satisfied. Public spaces, particularly with what's happening in Marine Parade, they'd argue that that would be their contribution rather than tipping into our marketing fund.
We're happy with that.
It's worked so far. We want the control of the promotional marketing. I mean, they know what we're doing. They don't object to what we're doing. They support our... So, for example, we've just had a big trade show in Auckland, and the councils have all been there at that trade show. So it's not a direct marketing advertising contribution, but they have been there with us. So yeah, in different ways, but it's not a dollar value into our campaign activity. But that may change.
I think after a number of years, we've all settled down into our roles, and it's. Well, no, I think the problem has been when you go in and sort of get the money, you end up spending more time arguing about it than getting on with your own things. And what's emerged at that is I think the councils recognise that they can do a lot of good things in their own area that support tourism, and it does, at the moment, I can say we're playing nicely. That's the way I'd put it.
There's a big PR piece that we're looking to amplify the work we do, and NZME is obviously a media partnership, but we're working on a year-round campaign with NZME to maximise our dollars and profile of Hawke's Bay. So quite a lot of activity, and I think I've only got one more slide, which just shares top line where we've got to. And we have a very simple mission statement, which is getting visitors here, doing more and coming back, and certainly in the spend category that is evidenced by the numbers. But just a reminder that we are 6% of GDP and we employ just under 5,000 people in tourism. And since we've begun, there's been an additional 500,000 nights spent in Hawke's Bay. So, all good.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks, George. Are there any questions people want to follow up on? I appreciate it's close to time, and George, you need to catching a plane very shortly. Any questions of Paul?
Thank you, Chair.
I'll just have Paul.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Graham, I got in there first. Annie, the last time you came and presented to us, I asked you the question about how many nights are actually referrals from social welfare for people who have been put up because they're homeless. You indicated to me then that perhaps you could come up with some sort of numbers, I think, and I see nothing in this report. Have you got any sort of idea?
There's nothing in the report. Just doing that alone, but we haven't had any reports from the motel sector in Naked that's happening, and I have had from Hastings that there's 3 properties.
Yeah. Are you able to go out to your member properties and actually ask the question if they can keep those sort of stats so that we've got some sort of idea? Because at the end of the day, your KPIs are dependent upon this sort of stuff.
It's a very, very, very small
Very
number.
small.
It's 3 properties of probably 200 or 300. So it's not something that I'd call a major in terms of what we do.
I seriously doubt it would even register in terms of volume in comparison to the tourism numbers. Like you'd be doing a lot of work for little impact, because it's not really going to change the results here in any way, shape or form. It is quite small.
Councillor Graham?
I note the 6% of GDP and the, the 5,000 employed. I'd be really interested to know how many people are employed in Hawke's Bay and what percentage tourism is. It'd probably be range between the 6 and 10, I would think.
I think it
Yep.
is. Yeah.
But it'd be
At
quite-
a national, it's about, I think tourism employs about 10% nationally.
Do they?
So we
Okay.
probably sit just under that.
Mm.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm prepared to move the.
Move the recommendation. We've got to move it. Second for that, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour of. Sorry, you want to speak?
I do. Thank you, George and Annie, and I hope we haven't inconvenienced your trip too
No, no.
much. George, I just would like to say this UNESCO initiative that you've raised here, that is so exciting. And 9 years ago, I was part of an international study tour around 12 countries around the world, and the Palmer initiative that you just spoke of, I went there and I saw what it can do for countries around the world, and I know what it can do here.
Oh, fantastic.
And when you speak about telling the stories with the cultural element, and far out you're getting there when you're onto that UNESCO stuff, so I'm incredibly excited for what you're doing there.
Oh, thank
And
you.
if I can help, sing out.
I think
In
always
terms-
need good people. Thank you.
In terms of Fork, and I sort of consider the barriers to Fork, and so I look to the future when there'll be driverless cars and the barriers to drink driving won't be there, and we can all enjoy it. But thanks for your time this morning, this afternoon.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Yes, Mike.
Kia ora, Annie. Thank you very much. I'm particularly interested, pleased with the Māori tourism performance or part of your presentation. Perhaps next time it'd be great to have some photos in there as well of
Oh,
just
yep.
what is going on. That would be fantastic.
Well, we're off to Waiheke actually just after this, so we can share some things next time.
Be nice if they're all going in.
Yep.
Any other comments?
I just want to say, since I've been on the council, and I was a little bit of a sceptic in the beginning, but you two, and it's the two of you, have done a fantastic job. Really sensational job, so well done. I just hope that you are making our new councillor, who have given to you, make him work
Very hard.
Very hard. That's excellent. So well done, all of you, and your team have done this.
Thank you, Rex. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
No reply? Thank you very much, both. Tremendous work, and delighted to receive the prizes, Annie.
Thank you, Chair.
We'll break for lunch, and I didn't move the motion. In favour of receiving the report. Thank you. My apologies. We'll break for lunch, and can we make it really a rapid lunch and returning it at 1:15?
I used to work with her. She had my team in Wellington for 3 years. She was